These are the most brutal punishments of the Aztec Empire, going from the horrific to the downright blood-curdling. Number 10. It's not easy being a kid. You gotta go to school, you've got chores, and your parents are always on your case. And that was actually even worse for the Mexica kids in the Aztec culture. As early as age 4, you were basically expected to be a little adult doing chores for your parents, cooking dinners, working, and buying goods at the local market. And while early Aztec communities didn't consider kids legally responsible until the age of 10, that didn't stop them from seriously messing them up for disobedience. Which brings us right to the big scary maguey cactus. Parents were within their legal rights to take spines from a maguey cactus and stick them into their kids' wrists. This kind of wrist piercing was common enough that there are even illustrations of a mother sticking maguey needles into her weeping daughter's wrist in an old Aztec manuscript. It makes you realize that you really don't have it that bad when your parents take away your phone. But we also have records of the Aztecs doing something even nastier to their misbehaving children. Number 9. Aztecs had some pretty strong beliefs about what makes a good citizen: hardworking, diligent, obedient, and respectful. So it makes sense that they relied on extreme measures to make sure their kids grew up right. That's why severe disobedience might result in chili torture. They would pull together a pile of spicy Mesoamerican chili peppers, set them on fire, and let the chili fumes loaded with painful capsaicin irritant float up into their kids' eyes, who were being held over the fire. The Aztecs believed that the children would inhale the hot smoke and begin to salivate, forcing the anger out with the saliva, along with the bad instincts that led to their disobedient behavior. And just in case you don't believe us, this is yet another one that we have photographic, or rather pictographic, evidence of from contemporary manuscripts. Isn't it awesome when centuries-old civilizations leave us records of their activities? But you won't have many records if you suffer from our next punishments. Number 8. The Aztecs had to get unusually creative with their punishments because, as a semi-nomadic culture, it was impractical to have prisons. And unless you count the cactus spines and the chilies, they were also against torture. But that didn't mean that you were about to experience something nice if you committed a crime, especially if you were a noble. In Aztec culture, nobles were generally punished much harsher than normal people. They were the ones meant to be setting a positive example for the commoners. The Aztec court system might be a little more lenient on first-time offenders and then give them a lesser punishment: home demolition. A bunch of Aztec warriors would show up at your home and just utterly destroy it, leaving you to rebuild it if you had the resource to do so, or start living on the streets if you didn't. But there's actually an even more demeaning, non-lethal punishment available if you don't take care of your finances. Number 7. Fairness was considered an incredibly important principle in Aztec culture, which is why they had such a robust court system. Each city would be responsible for setting and enforcing its own variation of the rules, with the local seasoned Aztec warrior acting as a magistrate. If you committed financial crimes like borrowing money under dubious circumstances or damaging someone else's property, you were forced to pay back your creditor. And if you couldn't pay them back, that's when the punishment kicks in: punitive slavery. If you couldn't pay in money, you would pay back in labor. The authorities would draw up a contract that made you into a slave for your creditor until the debt was paid off. You'd lose your freedom and your personhood just because you couldn't pay the piper. But at least you wouldn't lose your life, as you would with every punishment that comes after. Number 6. Let's say you committed the ultimate no-no. You stole some of your neighbor's cattle, and then they drag you into the local court. Your local senior warrior hears all the facts of the case, and then he's ready to make his verdict. You're found guilty and sentenced to death. When the warrior finds you guilty, there is no appeal, no delay, no sentence to wait out. And he doesn't call for an executioner because he is the executioner. He vaults over the benches, crosses the space in seconds, and before you fully understand what's happening, his hands are locked around your throat. Meanwhile, everyone else just watches him strangle you to death with his bare hands. It seems pretty brutal. At least it's simple and quick. You would be shocked at all of the crimes that could lead to you getting the death sentence. From fraud to witchcraft to public drunkenness, dozens of crimes could get you killed. In addition to all of those weird ones, you'd also get executed for the more expected crimes like murder and sex crimes. And now you're going to find out what they did to adulterers. Number 5. This is another one of those crimes where there's an obvious double standard. You can't expect a culture that existed between the 13 and 1500s to be all that progressive. Men were only considered guilty of adultery if the woman they cheated with was also a married woman. However, a woman was considered guilty regardless of whether the man they cheated with was married or not. Ironically, the man would be considered guilty in this case too for cheating with a married woman. And the Aztecs took this all so seriously that they wouldn't just execute the adulterers. The people who knew about the affair but did nothing to stop it were considered to be accessories to the crime, and everyone involved could get the death penalty. And just like today, affairs were considered pretty steamy, gossip-fueling affairs, so you could really picture the whole town gathering to watch the trial. It's not a long trial, and when the Aztec warrior presiding over the case declares everyone involved guilty, that is when the audience participation begins. Everyone in the crowd starts to throw a cascade of rocks, striking the bodies of the guilty, bruising their flesh, and breaking bones. They'll keep on throwing until the guilty parties are all dead under a massive pile of rocks. The punishment was wildly disproportionate, but in a culture that prized strict family values, a brutal public execution made a lasting example, because no one wanted to end up on the wrong side of a flying rock. But a lot of cultures stone people. This next brutal punishment is uniquely Aztec. Number 4. Some of the most brutal fates imaginable were the ones reserved for soldiers who dared to go against the might of the Aztec army. But as some of the most testosterone-poisoned guys in history, they also had a lot of respect for warriors that they deemed strong and honorable, even if they fought for the other team. That's why captured warriors were often revered by Aztec culture, and they believed it was important for them to have a warrior's death. Sometimes this meant execution by combat. In cases like this, the captured warrior would have their leg chained to a large rock or a platform and be given a flattened club. They would then have to go head-to-head with an Aztec fighter with a sharpened club. Naturally, this would give the Aztec a clear advantage and a pretty good chance of hacking the prisoner to death, which would function as a sacrifice to the Tezcatlipoca, the discord-loving god of night, sorcery, and destiny. But the reason why this punishment doesn't crack the top 3 is because the Aztecs respected the warrior ethos so much. If you managed to win despite your disadvantages and defeat the Aztec fighter, you were actually free to go. The same is sadly not true if you ended up in any of our top 3 punishments. Number 3. If the Aztecs really had a reason to dislike you, then they had a perfect punishment to draw out your pain for as long as possible. A kind of proto-firing squad that worked on the exact opposite principle of a modern firing squad. Today, you'd be seated with a bag over your head and a target placed over your heart. A group of expert marksmen would take aim and the deed would be done. In a lot of cases, several of the rifles would have blanks in them. That way, no one marksman needs to shoulder the burden of knowing they took the prisoner's life. In the Aztec version, you would be chained to a huge rock and have a white marking painted on your back where your heart is, and the assembled archers would nock their arrows. And then they would take it limb by limb, firing arrows at all the parts of you that they know won't kill you, until you're utterly pincushioned. It is only when you look like a human porcupine that the archers would be given permission to take aim and fire at your heart, giving you merciful death. But hey, much worse things could happen to your heart after getting captured by the Aztecs. Number 2. Aztec sacrifice is an interesting and complicated matter, especially if you're the one getting sacrificed. All of these sacrifices served the same purpose. The Mexica pantheon fed on human blood. But the way each ritual played out depended entirely on which god was being honored, with prisoners of war often the most chosen as the victims. If they wanted to sacrifice you to Huitzilopochtli, then you would be taken to one of the twin pyramids of the Templo Mayor. There you'd be tied to a rock in preparation for a very close encounter with an Aztec high priest and his favorite obsidian knife. With the expert precision of someone who has done this literally thousands of times, the high priest will carve through your chest with the knife while you're still alive, and then rip out your still beating heart. It would be offered up to the sun god and your body sent to the Aztec warrior that captured you. He would either cut it up and then send the pieces to important people as tributes, or eat parts of it to gain your power and raise himself in warrior culture. And somehow, there is still a method of punishment and sacrifice that is even worse. Number 1. Being a captive warrior sacrificed to Tezcatlipoca or Huitzilopochtli would suck, but it was nothing compared to the suffering of those offered to Xiuhtoctli or his metaphorical big brother Huitzilopochtli, both gods of fire. First, you'd be invited to a big celebratory feast where you were the guest of honor. That is so nice. What's not so nice is that after the food and the drinks are consumed, you get thrown into the fire and then taken out of the fire and then thrown back in. It's a torturous ordeal of burning pain, and before you die, your charred, almost corpse is dragged out of the pyre so a priest can, you guessed it, rip out your heart with an obsidian knife. And then the rest of you is thrown back into the flames, because why not? Want to enjoy some more brutal Aztec antics? Why not check out He Killed a Princess and Made His Priest Wear Her Skin? Or watch this instead.